Thank you so much for joining me here again on the APV Podcast. My name is Kiara Ferguson, and I am your host. And today we are joined by Dr. David Hunter, and we are going to discuss the BabySee app today. Thank you so much, Dr. Hunter, for joining me this morning. It's such a pleasure. And I'm just going to go ahead and give you a moment to introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Kiara. I'm happy to be here. And yes, I have a few jobs, but I'm the chief of ophthalmology at Boston Children's Hospital. So I am a pediatric ophthalmologist. I take care of kids who have eye conditions. I've been doing that for something like 30 years for much of my career. And I have a few other jobs. I've started a company that is involved in vision screening called Rebion, and I'm a professor of ophthalmology at Harvard Medical School.
Well, again, thank you, Dr. Hunter, for sharing a little bit about yourself and sitting with us again this morning. So we're going to go ahead and kick off into our topic, which is the BabySee app, which is a very cool app that I was fortunate to learn about with this program. And to find that you were, behind the scientific backing of the app is very exciting. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about the BabySee app?
Yeah, well, one of the most common questions that I am asked, but have been asked over my career by parents, especially new parents, is, so what can my baby really see? And, you kind of try to describe things, and it's always hard to just give a description. And so one day we were sitting around thinking about, it was actually as part of the company, we were thinking, how can we kind of connect with parents? And we thought, it should be possible to answer that question with a video by doing a video simulation on the phone. So this, I won't go into all the details of how we figured out how to make the phone image blurry and take away the color and those sorts of things. But we actually, I really did a deep dive into the science of kids' vision. And there are a couple of aspects of kids' vision and anyone's vision that develop. One is visual acuity, which is just how sharp are the letters, like what size letters can you see. But there's also color, right? So there's how intense is the color vision. And then there's also contrast. That is how much if you see a black letter on a white background, how much does it pop versus Is it kind of a gray letter on a kind of a gray background? So I began to look into the science of it, and I found one particularly helpful article. So I'm going to share that article with you. It just so happens that I have that article here in front of me. And so this was by Dr. Davida Teller. I'm going to just adjust my screen size a little bit to make it easier to make it fill the screen a little bit better. So Dr. Davida Teller is really a renowned vision scientist. She's since passed away. This is an article, though, that she wrote in 1997 about the vision of infants, that put together all of the science to that date. And there's been more science since then, of course, but it really put it all together. And so this was Dr. Teller herself as a baby. And so she used a number of different tests to try to characterize how infants could see, and to develop various graphs that you'll see here throughout the article. But so here's one test, and I'm going to show you a video of this test in just a minute. Of the person doing the test holds up this card that has stripes on one side and not at the other, and just looks to see if the baby looks at the stripes or not, because a baby's naturally going to look at something like those stripes, and then they use that to decide which way the baby's looking and what size bars they see, what color bars they see, all of those things to come up with reams of data. But the beauty of what she did in this article is she then took a picture of her and her husband sitting in a field, and then she blurred it to her specifications, to what she understands the color, the contrast, and the clarity of the letters is, and published these simulations. And so then what we did is, when we developed our app, we used this as sort of our Bible. So I would take the app and I'd say, okay, 3 months old. And then I would take a picture of the normal picture with the app and make sure that I'd hold up the app and make sure that my app matched the picture of what the 3-month-old would see, sort of as a way to validate. So I just
Right.
want to show you a little bit more about some of the, and you can interrupt me if I'm getting too carried away here, but wanted to show you some of the tests that are used to test vision in an infant. So one is this one. It's called the preferential looking test, or teller acuity cards, as in DeVita Teller, who we just were talking about. And so basically, you see, you hold up this card, and the baby, and this Dr. Louisa Mayer here looks at the baby and sees if the baby looks in the direction where the stripes are. Now, she actually doesn't even know where the stripes are, and she's looking at the baby through the peephole. And then she checks the card to see where the stripe was, to see if her impression matched. So that is one test. All right. So another test that's used to check infants and babies, and I'll now switch to this one. If I can find it, let's see here. I believe this is it. Is called visual evoked potential. So literally, the baby here has electrodes on the front and back of his brain and the head, and these electrodes are measuring his response to these different stimuli that are presented to him. So this is called VEP, or visual evoked potential. So between VEP and preferential looking, you get a sense for what a baby can see. So we took all that data and we put it into this app.
Well, that's amazing that you were able to, of course, use DeVita Teller's her work. It seems like it was groundbreaking and innovative, and you were able to innovate that in a different way and put it in an app that's so convenient for anyone to just kind of pull up and use and see what their baby is able to see. So that leads me into my next question, which is, how does the app work specifically? If I were to just open it up, how would I use it per se?
Yeah, it's we tried to make it pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do here is join the conference as myself, so that you can so you're going to see another one of me. You'll see that my mute that and mute this. Okay, so now it should be quiet. All right, so you see how my picture of myself makes it so you can't really tell if I'm frozen or paying attention. All right, so now I've got, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll do screen broadcast and start broadcast. And then we're going to switch over to the BabySee app. Here we go. So this is the BabySee app. Get rid of myself. And so it's basically pretty straightforward. There's a little tutorial that you get to walk you through the steps of adding a baby to the baby list, going to the infant vision simulator, and reading about your child's visual health. So if we go to the vision simulator, now I'm just here in my office. So, and this is currently the vision of what a 10-week-old child would see. But wow, you can also change it to different ages and see how your child's vision is maturing over time in terms of color, contrast, and clarity. And so one thing that I learned from doing this, because I did learn, was that the world can be sort of blurry, but faces always seem to sort of jump out more than anything else, even here in what we have as a 1-day-old simulation. In addition to that, we have this thing called IQ, and what IQ does is it gives you information about questions you might have about your child, and it can kind of help you queue up your visit to your doctor so that you can have questions ready to ask about to ask your doctor about various thises and that's. Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention is that when you are in the vision simulator, you can take a picture and then share that with your friends, etc. So I
Wow.
will stop my share again. And I will have the second version of me leave Zoom like so. There we go.
Well, it seems that the app is very self-explanatory. You just kind of open it up and like you showed us, you are able to navigate the world of your baby through an app and see what they see as they see it. And so the app obviously does very amazing things, but of course you can't put everything and all of the great science into an app. So where is the app in terms, what is it missing? What does it currently miss?
Yeah, so we do our best to simulate the vision, and as you see, some of it is that the cameras on every phone are can be a little bit different, and so it could vary slightly from phone to phone. So what a 2 week old sees on one phone may look like a 2.5 week old on another phone, or and there it can get in terms of the blur. Sometimes the blur gets a little blocky. You get some like little blocks as opposed to just pure blur. Another thing is that it doesn't simulate. There may be differences in how children perceive motion. For example, if something is moving, their perception of that motion may be different, and it may be different in terms of it. And it can't simulate the 3D vision that a child would be developing over time. But other than that, you can use it to just to get a little bit more empathy for what your kid is seeing. And some parents have told us that they'll use it, they'll like decorate their kid's room and then like use the BabySee app to sort of see if the things that they have in there look like they're sufficiently interesting to their child, so you can use it that way as well.
Right. Very cool. And so this brings me into my next question, which is how can the BabySee app be beneficial to a new parent, someone that hasn't gone through parenthood, maybe hasn't ever gone to a pediatrician, office outside of for their own care? How could this be beneficial for someone like a new parent?
Yeah, I mean, when you look into your baby's eyes, there's just a lot of mystery there as to what is being perceived, and so for one thing, it can give you a little bit more sense or empathy as to what your baby is perceiving. So it can just be helpful in that sense. And then just also as a kind of as an educational value for the power of how vision develops and how the brain learns to see over time. And then the other thing is just that while you're there, you happen to have this resource that you can check in for 2 minutes to just see if you have some question that comes up, or if you just want to get ready for the pediatrician visit to kind of know what to expect and what they're going to be looking at the next well child visit.
Very good. All right. And so, Dr. Hunter, the last question that I have, which I think is probably the most important question that I'm going to ask, is why is vision health, especially in pediatrics when we're talking about young children, why is it so important?
Yeah, and this is of course my whole career is staked on this and trying to help with to optimize a child's development. So you look at those, at how these studies of the brain waves and the vision and what's kind of not intuitive is that the brain is learning how to see over time. So our eyes collect the image, they deliver it to the brain, but the newborn baby brain has to have an image to learn how to see. And so, as an example, if you were to put the patches over both of a baby's eyes for the first, no one would ever do this, but put patches over a baby's eyes for the first 6 months of life, perfectly normal, healthy baby, that baby would, by the time you took those patches off, would be blind in those eyes. And if you did it over just one eye for the first 6 months of life, by the time you took the patch off, that eye would be completely blind. Now, or almost completely blind. Now, what happens then is over time you can that we don't do that, of course, to babies, but there are medical conditions that can have that same effect. Example of very rarely children can be born with cataracts, if you don't get those cataracts out, the child won't learn to see. The time is of the essence there. Kids can be born with one eye really farsighted or one eye really nearsighted. That eye never gets a focused image, so it doesn't learn how to see. So it gets stuck at that, like, that 1 day picture that I showed you. It's like it never develops beyond that 1 day of life picture. And so, or eyes can be crossed. Sometimes they can be like obviously out of alignment. Sometimes they can be more subtly out of alignment. And when that is happening, then again, because the brain's getting like crossed images from the two eyes, it gets confused. It shuts one eye off, and it's as if you put a patch over that eye. So all of these things can happen to it. And what's sad is that the baby can often look perfectly normal and healthy, and they can act perfectly normal and healthy because one eye does have good vision. It's just that the other eye is shut down. And so we need to identify these problems in kids when they develop, so that we can get kids into treatment. And so this is where the whole idea of vision screening comes in, is that we need to need to find a way to test the vision of young children. A lot of time, if you get to it by the time they're 2 years old, 3 years old, you still have time to get the vision back. So in the example of you've had one eye blocked or out of focus for the first multiple years of life, if you then can cover the other eye, you can give that eye a chance to catch up. So time is the essence with kids' vision, because the vision is developing, the brain is learning to see. If there is a problem, there's often no way to even know it without doing some sort of screening. But if you do pick it up, it's actually relatively treatable. It's treatable, and you can get the vision back to baseline. So that's what's so important about kids' vision, and why it's important for parents to be aware of their kids' vision.
Well, Dr. Hunter, I thank you so much again for taking time out to share the BabySee app and just your knowledge with us. I want to leave you with the floor to leave any last remarks or tips and tricks that you may have for any of our listeners about pediatric vision health.
Oh, tips and tricks. Well, let's see. Gosh, you kind of caught me off guard there. Just if you have a concern and you have a question, and if you do see something that does seem off, then don't be afraid to ask about it and to get somebody to have a look.
Well, Dr. Hunter, again, thank you for sitting with us today. It was such a pleasure. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And for our listeners, thank you for listening. There will be more information on the BabySee app in the description box. You can find the app in the Google Play Store as well as the Apple App Store. So definitely go download it, check it out, and see as your baby sees. Again, this is an APV podcast, and we thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.